Hello everyone and welcome to this Odoo Insider session dedicated to the mid-market and corporate project. And today we're going to focus a bit on how we at Odoo handle the larger project for larger companies. So here a few reminders before starting digging into the topic. So here you can find the schedule for the next Insider sessions. An important topic, since starting in January, the schedule will be updated and changed to start at 9:30 instead of 10 a.m. to end at 11:30 and not at 12. And here in this document, you can also find the links to the different past sessions if you want to have a new look on what has been discussed and what has been covered. So here, my name is Greg. I'm a business service manager focused on the large project, so on the mid-market and corporate segment.
And I'm Maxime, working in the team of Greg, working on the implementation of those mid-market and corporate projects. And so today we'll see with you how we handle those projects and what's the life cycle of such a project and what are the different tools that we are using. And of course, we'll be there to answer your questions.
So first, let's have a look a bit on the life cycle of project. So here, as you can see, we designed a document here to highlight the main steps we covered during an MMC project, from the first contact we receive with a potential client until the end of the project with the transition to the support or to the upgrade of those kind of projects. So here we have, I would say, 3 different phases. The first one would be the pre-sales, where the salesperson is mostly involved and doing all the qualification to discover what are the needs of the client, what the client is looking for, what are their objectives, and so on. And then, when the qualification has been done, either we receive an RFI, so a request for information or request for quotation, where we receive a list of topics, requirements, business needs, where we're going to provide answers. We also do what we call a way of working, where we go at the client side and we try to look at how the client is working to understand their processes and see how we can answer them with Odoo. And then we come with a demonstration, a tailored demonstration done by the salespeople to really be able to convince the client that Odoo can be a fit for their companies. And of course, we present Odoo at the end to see if we can move to the next steps. And there we, as consultants, start to be involved to really help to convince the client to jump into Odoo. So here, I will stay quite high level on this part because here it's most a sales job, but if you have additional questions, feel free to ask them. And we will mostly focus on the ROI analysis part and the implementation part, of course. So here, the next phase is the ROI analysis. The objective of this phase is really to understand the business needs of the client, see how Odoo can answer to those needs to be able to provide the best solution and the best return on investment for the client and the company, to bring more efficiency, to, I would say, to integrate all the process into one single application and see how Odoo can fit inside the client, I would say, infrastructure. So here, different step that we're gonna detail a bit. So first, we're gonna estimate the time we need to tackle this ROI. Then we will send and present an offer, because here this ROI is paid by the customer, and we need to provide a budget and a planning, and of course detail a bit the content and what we're gonna do inside this ROI. Then we're gonna start the ROI by a kickoff to explain what we're gonna do in the next couple of weeks/days, of course, and then we're gonna prepare it internally, send some to-dos to the client to be able to be efficient during the workshop. So to identify the right person on the client side, to gather all documents and all the info we might need. Then we're gonna do all the workshops, and we're gonna, at the end, send all the results and present what we have discovered and what we have analyzed to be able to provide a budget, a timeline, and of course, a scope to be implemented.
And those points will be detailed later on. So the objective of the ROI analysis, as Greg was saying, is really to capture everything that we will have to put in place to understand what are the pain points at the customer side, to also start identifying all the risks related to the implementation and make sure that we take all those elements into account when we will prepare the next phase, which is the implementation.
Yeah. So here there is already one question. So about the testing part. So the testing part is not in this ROI analysis phase. It comes in the implementation here phase. It's not. We did not detail every I would say steps of the project. We try to be high level in this life cycle. Otherwise, here we will not be able to read, I would say, this flow. But we're gonna detail that later on when we're gonna dig into the implementation. Because of course, here I will detail all the small boxes of this ROI analysis just after here. But then we're gonna focus, or Max will focus here on the implementation part to give you all the information about that. Here I also see a questions about the gap analysis, which is a quick answer here. The gap analysis is the ROI analysis. That's where we identify the gaps between Odoo standard and the business needs. But we call that a ROI analysis because we don't want to focus only on this investment part where we only come with the cost of the implementation, but we also focus on what Odoo will bring to the company. And that's why here we call that an ROI analysis instead of a gap analysis, because we add this layer of this return on investment and not only focused on the cost of the implementation. So maybe here, let's start to dig into the detail of the pre-sales part and the ROI analysis. So here, as I mentioned, we have three main steps in the pre-sales activity. So before starting the implementation, we have the RFI and RFQ, where we have here, in this case, we receive a lot of files, different formats with different needs that are quite detailed or not, where we're gonna have to provide some answers. And our methodology is not to only answer to the needs, but try to understand what's behind those needs and to provide the best advice and see what value Odoo can bring to the company. And in order to provide already an estimate of a timeline or a budget, we use with our ROI templates to keep the same methodology or the same way of handling those topics from the RFQ and the ROI analysis, so to continue to work with the same computation and not have different ways of estimation between those two phases. Because of course here the needs are quite vague or high level, and then we're gonna refine them during the workshops. So here this phase is mainly handled by the salesperson with the help of the consultant if something is quite advanced or quite complex, and the salesperson needs some assistance from the consultants. So here the next step, which is here the ROI analysis. So I'm gonna zoom a bit on this section, is the ROI analysis. Here, this phase take quite some time depending on what we have to analyze and how many workshops we have to do. And to do that, so here we work with here this file, the discovery phase or the ROI analysis, where we're gonna list all the requirements we discover during the different workshops. And here we're gonna see a bit what this file is about. Here we have this statement of work that will summarize and list all the items, so all the business needs and the requirements of the customer that we had discovered during the workshops. And we categorize them into a phasing. So we group them by phase to see when we're going to deliver those business needs. We have a group just to be able to either to organize a bit our file, either by processes, by department, by scope, or by application, or whatever you want. It's really a free grouping, and what works the best for you will be fine. We have this column if we want to make some reference between the items. If something related to something else, we can make the link. Here, the most important part, the needs. That's where here we're going to have to put some focus, because here that's where you have to list really what's the customer is needing, what the customer needs. To here, what we do, we really focus on the customer request, and we focus on what the customer is trying to do. We should not provide a solution directly here, and the client should not express their need in terms of technical aspect or software-related aspect. It's really to focus on the business needs directly, because here the solution will be provided there, and that's where Odoo or the consultants, more generally, will come with, I would say, technical solution, or at least a solution within Odoo, either with standard configuration, standard use of Odoo, or in developments or integration or data import or whatever.
And as Greg explained, we to collect those needs, we have workshops with the customer, and the idea is that after every workshop, we try to already put the needs into the file to make sure that we will have a complete file and complete view quite soon, and not wait until the end of all those workshops. And it's really needs, as Greg said, it's super important to go deep and to understand what's behind something that's asked by the customer, because sometimes they just say, I want this report, that information, but you really have to take the time to dig deeper and understand why is this needed, because it will help you to design the best solution.
Yeah, and we should not also, of course, take all the needs as granted, because we're going to challenge them. Because sometimes the client will try to replicate what they currently have, because they don't want to change, because it's already working today, or because they already did like that. And here we have to come with alternatives or better solution. So here the link to the document is already available on the partner platform already, and also in the Odoo implementation methodology book that you can find on our platform.
Can you maybe show them live how to access this page?
Yeah, the way I do is simply to Google that, and then you can find it directly as the first link, and you can directly see the PDF file where all the methodology is listed, and you can find a chapter on the ROI analysis. Where is it? Implementation phase. Let me do.
It's this one.
Yeah, and we can find the file somewhere.
I think it's at the bottom of the.
MMC training mind map and the discovery analysis.
What do you mean? Here, the mind map here is something I would say that I personal, so that I created for today's session. So here, of course, we can share it, but we're gonna have to, I would say, adapt the links, because some of the links reflect to our database. But of course, we can share that. It's not already publicly available, but upon request, I can send them or share it if need.
Could you make it available? Send me the link so I can share it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should have the file somewhere.
I think it's in the appendix that
Yep.
you have the links.
User interview here. You get it there. In the methodology, in the appendix C, you have the gap analysis tool, which refer to the file directly here, and so you get the Excel file of the analysis. So to come back here on the file, so here you collect the need, sorry. You define the needs, you provide solution, you classify also the needs, either standard, developments, integration, or data import. You also define, and that's where you're going to also challenge the client to either put those needs as a must-have, as a nice-to-have, as to be clarified, or to drop the need if you feel that this is not needed, or maybe it's too expensive, or the client decide to not do it at the moment. It's also important to come with some decision, to not always let the choice to the client, because here you are the expert of Odoo, and you know what's the best to implement. So here, don't hesitate to make some decision, to make some assumption on what would be the best for the project and for the client. Don't come with two alternatives to let the client decide. Come with one solution that you think is the best, and then move forwards. Once you have collected all the needs based on your different workshops, you're gonna start to work on the different timelines. But I see.
Maybe before jumping to the timeline, maybe important to say that we also build some Excalibur, so some flows that we can show to the customer to validate that our understanding is the right one. Because if you just have this list with all the needs, it's easy to overlook things and to forget some important elements, and sometimes the customer doesn't realize it directly. And so that's why we try to also provide an additional support to give something more visual about what we understood and how we see the solution.
Yeah, and here to get those, we try to be visual and also to not have like thousands of items, because the longer the list, the less chance we have that the client will go through them. And so what we do, we provide we work with Excalibur to provide visuals of the screens to be able to provide a first overview of what the solution will look like. Or we work also with proof of concept if the client is looking for additional information on that. So that's the part where we customize a bit the database, and we see what we can do to clarify some of those aspects. So here, the Google Sheet, share it, the Google Sheet, so template discovery tools. Yeah. Yeah. So
if you can share the Google Doc, that would
yeah.
be nice. And on LinkedIn, I have about the same question, but they were also saying that it's only red.
Yeah. So here, you will not have access on the partner platform. You will not get, I would say, edit access, because we don't want people to edit our templates. What you can do is to download the file and make your modification the way you want. Because here, of course, if everyone has the edit access, the risk that the template is modified is too big, and so that's why here we only provide read-only access, and you can simply download it and make whatever you want with the file. Okay, that's strange, because here you are supposed to be able to download it, because that's why we provide those templates to let you download the file and the template to make the best use of it.
Send me the link on
Yeah.
Discord maybe afterwards.
Yeah, we're gonna share the link and see why you cannot download that, because that's the point of having those templates available, is to let you use them and make the use of it. So if you cannot download that, that's an issue, and we're gonna see a bit what we can do about that. See here, so I will not try to go in too much detail in the way to do the timelines and the different pricing, but basically what we do is try to provide the best offer, and you get all the topic here to estimate and see what offer you have to do. So here, I will maybe more focus on the way we deliver the error analysis. So here, different steps in the error analysis. So first, we're going to initiate the work, where we're going to explain what will be covered in the error analysis, so the type of workshops, the kind of profile we expect to attend those workshops, and see a bit what going to be the daily deliverables of this phase. So here, the first main part is the as-is workshops. That's where we're going to ask for demonstration, where we're going to make the client work and show us the way they work today. So here, we really want to focus on what they currently have and the way they currently work, to not only focus on what they want to have in 3 or 2, 3, 4 years. So here, we ask for demo to really be able to understand what they currently have at the moment, to be able to take some step back and provide the best solution to at least cover what they currently do. Not the way they do it at the moment, but to try to find the translation or the mapping between what they do today in their current software, to make the mapping with Odoo and to find alternatives or better way to handle the work. During those workshops, it's mainly the customer which who is active on that, who is providing us with a lot of information, and we need to take some notes about that. And here it's important to be efficient, to not be, I would say, super framed or to be focused on that and have something super clean right away. That's why here we want to work with something that is efficient and taking notes with mind maps, because we find that very efficient, because you don't take too much time to make some content formatting, to use title, etc., to make some format. You just take a rough note that you're going to clean after the meeting, because it's important to really to capture everything that has been said and to understand the way they work and to understand the process they currently have at the client company. And from those workshops, we have some, I would say, mandatory outputs, which is some flow description, because you have to understand the way they do, so every steps they make. For example, in the sales process, to understand how they contact the customer, how they handle the pipeline of on their CRM, how they send quotes, etc. But that's not it, because we also want to focus on the pain points, so on what they have issue, what they want to see improved in the next phase. And that's the part that we did not have before in the gap analysis, is this focus on the pain points, to really understand all the pains they can have with the current software. And it's not only focused on the software, it's also, we also take into account the way people collaborate all together. Let's say how they communicate between departments, between team members, and where Odoo can come with solution. Let's say all the app integrated directly, the chatter where we can ping and discuss with colleagues immediately from the platform. So here we really want to take a look at the entire picture to see where Odoo can bring some added value. And that's why here we ask for demo in those workshops, but we also want to visit the client and see how the people are currently working. So we want to meet like one accountant, one salesperson, someone in the inventory, to really see at their workstation, at the workplace, how they work. The next deliverables that we want to have is to already highlight some of the configuration points and the development aspect, to directly spot if the flow will be quite standard, complex, or really specific, with requiring a lot of developments. We will also try to make a lot of screenshots or take some picture of the existing software and the existing screens to try to capture the information that they are filling, because most of the time when we ask the question, so what info do you fill on the quotation, the risk that someone forgets some information or forget to tell us something is quite big, because for them it's natural to feel that and they can take that as granted. And since we are not expert in every industry or every company, business, it's important to get that so we can ask questions if we feel that we did not understand why there is this information or this field or this button or whatever. And also, one output we want to have is to take one example of each PDF they send or receive from their software. It's like sale order, purchase order, invoices. So we already know a bit if it would be easy to adapt, if there is something to adapt or not, and also to say if we have all the information and if everything is clear on our side. So here this is part of the ASIS workshop. It's quite important because it's gonna help us to build the to-be solution and what we're gonna implement in Odoo.
Maybe one important point regarding those ASIS workshops, because like that it looks quite simple, but in practice, you first have to really take the time to explain to the customer why you want to understand how they work today, because what they mostly want is a new solution, and so they will focus on the to-be. And so it's important to explain, no, we will start with the ASIS. We need to really understand what you have. That's the part of the gap analysis, but also by showing things, we will also capture all those pain points and see what are the important aspects we should work on for the to-be. And it's not that easy to ask a customer to show how they actually work and show their software and so on, because they most of the time are a bit reluctant because they want to see a new solution and not their existing software. So it's really important to insist, explain, and educate the customer about this phase, and to make sure that the discussions stay on the current situation. The customer is showing a lot of things, but the consultant on our side has to ask a lot of questions. It's super important to understand everything, understand why things are done that way. Sometimes there is a good reason, sometimes it's just because one day we decide it, and so it's important to make the differences between things that are absolutely needed and things that could be dropped.
Yeah, and there was a question about the going on-site to the customer. So here at Odoo, we try to be efficient, to be the most efficient possible. So here, we do not go all the time to the client side, but sometimes it's quite good and it's easier to be on-site with the client to discuss some of the aspects. For example, for the ASIS workshops in the inventory or on the production part, it's really important to be there to see how the warehouse is organized, how the different production chains or the production line are organized, to see how they operate and what Odoo can bring to the client. For example, like putting an iPad at the end of the line just to validate the production or something like this. It's harder to get that if you are not in the company and seeing how they produce their goods. So that's why here we try to have a mix between remote sessions, because we don't have the commute time and we can make the best out of the budget. But for some time where there is an added value, we go on site if it's possible. Of course, if it's at the opposite of the world, we try to find workarounds. Of course, but if we can go on site to bring this value, to capture this the request, we push for that. So here, as soon as we have done those ASIS workshops and we understand the way the company is currently operating, we're going to try to work on the to-be session to provide a first view on what's the future solution or the future Odoo will look like for the company and how they will work in the future when they're going to transition to Odoo. And that's where we work with the to-be session, where we will answer to every or most of the pain points, or at least come with solutions to those pain points. What we also do is to make some demo of the business flow we discovered in the ASIS workshops. So we configure a database, we create some product, some client that I would say talk to the client. So we take some data from the client or this part of the data, so they can, I would say, project themselves in the future solution, and they can see that Odoo will work for them, and they can see and ask the questions if they feel something is not correct, and we can adapt also the way we understood the processes. So, and the objective of this is really to bring confidence on the Odoo capacity to fill the gaps between what they currently have, what they want to achieve in the future, and all and answer all the needs they expressed and everything we captured during the ASIS. Here, depending on the project, we're gonna schedule more or less to-be sessions. We don't cover to-be sessions for every workshop we have done. We only do it if there is a need, if there is something not clear, if there is a risk, or if it's something really critical for the business. We're going to try to convince them that Odoo is the right solution. After that, we're going to analyze all the items, provide a solution, as I showed in this file, in the statement of work. We're going to provide solution, we classify the needs, we type them, and we're going to also estimate the time required to handle them, either with BA work, if it's standard, or for specification, etc. And one time here, some days for the development aspects of the development items. And this is done during the analysis phase that we do internally without involving the client, except if we have some questions or if we need some extra information. And we work on that to centralize everything to be able to provide this timeline and this overall budget for the client that we're going to present during the result presentation, where we're going to detail what we have discovered, what we have analyzed, and come with a solution and the answer to different need they have expressed. And that's also where we're going to also explain the methodology we're going to use for the implementation, where we're going to also highlight the involvement of the client and really set up the first steps and the first stones, I would say, to build the project that we expect to have in the next phase.
And maybe just to add about the to-be workshop, something that's also to take into account is that you will convince the customer, you will show, and you will help them project themselves in the solution. But on top of that, one of the goals of the to-be is also to detect if there are still some misunderstandings, things that should be fine-tuned before the final result presentation. And so it's still an opportunity for us to adapt the solution that we designed.
Yeah, so here I saw a question about, I would say, change management, and also to try to, I would say, a bit push the client to use the different application. So here, basically, the way we try to work with the different audience we have in the company. So different department, the different job position. So we try to get, I would say, one person per department, per job, per process. And we try to work with them on that and try to, I would say, make some, I would say, marketing on that to promote that Odoo will bring some solution, and we're going to work with them to see what are the current pain point, what they cannot do at the moment, why it take them a lot of time, why also this part, this software is quite efficient, and see that we covered what works best, what will really work currently, that Odoo can do the same, but also focused on the pain point and see, okay, what Odoo can bring to them. And so here, the transition can be quite easy if you try to be, I would say, transparent and prove that Odoo can bring something to them, and there is something to take for their job to be most efficient and not to spend a lot of time in the way to handle, I would say, boring tasks like encoding a lot of data inside the tool. If Odoo can help them on that to be more efficient and focus on tasks that brings value to the company, the change management will be quite easy. Of course, not everyone will be, I would say, willing to switch to Odoo. Some people are reluctant to change or are sometimes against Odoo. And that's why here we also work a lot with the client to identify those persons and to work with them and to understand why they don't want to jump into Odoo. And if it's if they don't believe, if they don't trust that Odoo can bring some value, it's a job that we do in collaboration with the client to bring and break this lack of trust with the client, to push them and to onboard them on the project. So at the end, they can be, I could say, Odoo ambassador, and they can push internally for the use of Odoo. So here, to conclude with this part on the error analysis, here are some tips that we spend and to share internally. For the error analysis, is really to work with global items, to not have like really specific items or small one, to really have something more bigger items that centralize several requests, because here, the longer the file is, the less the chance we have that the client will go through them and will validate the entire content. Also, don't write too much text, because here, if the text is too long, nobody will read it. So try to be concise, precise, and also work with some visuals, because sometimes one picture can really summarize a long text pretty quickly. You can also design some flows to really be able to help the client to project themselves into the system and see how they're going to work. So we can work with escalados, with a list of screens that will highlight a bit the flow they will follow inside Odoo. For the ASIS workshops, really push the client to work. It's up to them to refeed you with information to show them how they currently work and to really show you what they expect or what they currently do. Because here, sometimes the client really focused on the to-be solution and say, okay, I want that in 2 years, I want this, 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 and this, and already come with technical solution. It's not their job to come with a solution. We are the expert of the system, so they come with the business need. They want to do that, that, and that, and we're going to provide them with a solution. And so as I said, so here in the ASIS, you ask for demonstration. Even if the client say, I don't want to replicate what we currently have, we should not do that because we'll be biased and replicate the current behavior. We push the client to do that because it's important for us to understand what they do, how they do it, because here it will help us to design the flow and see what's the need behind this action. Of course, we will not focus on the way they do, but we try to understand what they try to achieve and find the best answer into Odoo. So here, once you have done that and and you have convinced the client, then you expect, of course, to switch and to sell the project. And then we switch to the implementation part. And that's where here the service team is fully responsible of this phase. So we set up like an entire team with a project manager or director, some business analysts, and some developers. And here, Maxime will detail a bit more this part.
Yes, indeed. So, as Greg explained, the pre-sales is really the basis and the foundations for the implementation. And now we will jump into the implementation. But just before doing that, a small reminder about the project profiles that are involved on the life cycle of a project. So for the pre-sales part, we said that the key account manager, so the sales, are fully involved in that part, of course. And what's important as well to mention is that for the ROI analysis, we already involve some of the profiles that are in the consultant team, like a project director, a solution architect, maybe a business analyst, certainly, sometimes experts if we have specific topics that we know will need more expertise, and developers as well, because we can have also some discussions about integrations or more technical aspects. And what we try to do as well is to make sure that all those people that are involved during the ROI will still be linked to the project during the implementation. So either they will be part of the project team or they will be there to provide some support when required. And so all those are the different profiles. So the key account manager, the project director will be responsible for all the governance aspect and all the planning, scoping, and budgeting. Solution architect is a role that we introduced, and that's it's more for the biggest project where you have a full solution to put in place and make sure that solution all the parts of the solution are working well together, and that someone has a global view and understanding. And so that's the role of the solution architects. And
we'll have to see those solution architects, I would say, as expert in a big project, and are there to help maybe some more junior BAs on project, or to help on some specific topic to really unblock the project, and again to be the most efficient possible on different project.
And depending of the profile of the project, they can just jump in on specific phases or specific aspects of the project, or they can be there for the long run. And so the business analysts are the one who will translate the business needs into the solutions. And even if we already have a first version during the ROI, it will need to be refined during the implementation, of course, and sometimes with the help of experts. So we have internal experts for the different fields that we are covering, the different Odoo applications, because sometimes some topics are very specific, and so it's really efficient to work together with the experts. And when developments are required, of course, we have developers that are assigned to the projects as well. And then we have also all the management structures, so team lead, coach, and manager that are there to make sure that we don't miss any important steps, that we follow the methodology, and if we decide to deviate for any reason, that it's a reasonable one.
And something I want to add on that, because here you can see that we have a lot, I would say, different profile that can potentially be involved on project. It does not mean that we create all the time for those kind of projects a huge team, because basically what we have in most the most project, we have one project director, 1 or 2 BAs, and 1 or 2 developers maximum. I would say in average, that's the team size. But from time to time, depending on the project, depending on the moment or what we have to cover in a project, we're gonna involve one solution architect, because here he might already cover that topic in another project, like for example some specific access rights, some specific integration, or some specific elements in the project, or we have to tackle a specific scope, like we focused those 2 months for on the project on finance, and we are not quite comfortable because the topic is quite complex. Then we're gonna pick one expert in that domain to help us to work on the project. So here we really try to have the smallest team possible and try to pick the right resource at the right time, to not have like super big budget, and try to make the best use of the budget we already estimate during the ROI analysis. And so people come on the project and leave the project all the time, but we try to keep one, I would say, core team that will handle the entire scope, to not lose information and to not lose, of course, efficiency.
Indeed, yeah. It's really important, because when you have fewer people on a project, the communication is much more efficient, and also the understanding of the full scope of the project and the impacts of decisions that you will take on one side will have on the other parts of the project. So that's key for the project success.
Yeah. And efficiency is really a key point on project, and we also have made a talk at the Odoo Experience on that, so you can find it on our YouTube channel. It's about really MMC efficiency, because the bigger project, sometimes the slower it will go, and we try to break that habits, and we try to be efficient and do it the Odoo way.
Yes. So for the implementation, as you can see, we have split it in several parts. We have first the kickoff and the initiation, where we will lay out the foundations for the implementation itself. So the idea will be to make sure, and it's all together with what we call the product owner. So it's our main point of contact on the customer side. That will be the project manager on their side. We will make sure that everything is in place and ready for smooth implementation. And so what we will do during the kickoff is putting all the teams together, making it clear about the way we will work all together, the tools that we will use. And so basically for the follow-up of the project and the task that will be implemented, we are using Odoo, of course. And we will also already get the approval for the planning, and more specifically for the first sprint, so to make sure that we know on day one what are the tasks that we will work on when we will start the actual implementation. We have also templates for the planning, templates for RACI matrix. So RACI, it's really roles and responsibilities, knowing who will handle what, and it's super important to make sure that there is no misunderstanding, and so not having the customer thinking that Odoo will take care of that and the other way around. So it's super important to be aligned on what we will do and what we expect the customer to do. I will maybe later dig into details of one of those aspects, but I propose that we go through the full scope, and then we will deep dive on some of the topics. So after the kickoff, we will actually start the delivery. And so to do that, we will make sure that we have sprints that are organized. So generally, what we try to do, but it can depend on the size of the project, is that we will have sprints where you will do an analysis part, making sure that you understand exactly the needs and that we are well aligned about the solutions. Then there will be developments, and the third part will be the testing. So each sprint will be split into these phases, and we will also parallelize the sprints. So once one sprint, the analysis is ongoing, on another one, we will start the development and the testing of the other one. So it will really be important to be efficient. In fact, we don't want to wait for 2 weeks of analysis to start the next sprint. So we have developments ongoing all the time.
If I can add something around sprint, here we do not, I would say, fully respect the Scrum or Agile methodology on sprint. Here we call that sprint, but it's mostly, I would say, block that we have to give some rhythm and to push us to deliver development, configuration, so elements to the client so he can see what we are doing, and we can also adapt the content of our delivery with the time, with some testing, and try to be as efficient and avoid deviating from the plan or ensure that we not misunderstood some element. Of course, if there is some change, we're going to adapt them, but at least we can push the client to be involved and show what we have done and make some demo, push them to test as soon as possible so they can provide feedback and see how we can improve the project, improve the delivery. And so we really have this rhythm of sprints that we call sprints, but it's mostly, I would say, blocks in the project where we focus on a specific topic.
Indeed. And yes, the idea is that in one sprint we will put something that can be tested more or less end-to-end by the customer. It's not just small points here and there, but really a subset of functionalities that can bring already value and that can be tested all together. One focus that we do, it's on the specification. So when we work on the specifications for developments, we try to be as visual as possible, and so we are using Excalibur for that purpose. I will show you later on examples, but the idea is really that the customer should be able to see things and to project himself or herself into the solution and validate the solution, because we realize that by putting specification just in writings, it's much more difficult for people to validate and then to test based on those specifications and making sure that everything was taken into account.
And if I can add also something on that, because it's really a hot topic here at Odoo, it's about how to make specification. Because basically what we also saw is that when people were writing a lot of text, sometimes they try to hide the fact that they didn't fully understand what they have to do, and so they write the text expecting the developer to make some magic and try to find what he has to use out of that. And so here we want to make something visual and ensuring that the way we design and we think the solution is something workable and not something that will be super expensive or super complex to use in Odoo. And really having something like visual really already changed the way we did or we thought some elements in the error analysis, just because here we saw that some standard can do the job, or that the solution we designed in this phase was too complex and almost impossible to use or realistic to the way they operate before.
And so as you can see, the idea is really to put Odoo screens and to make the changes directly in the Excalibur, so in the specification itself, and it's much more visual than having flowcharts describing things, but you don't see what it means and you don't understand how it will actually work. And so we have a document about good practices and example of things that we should do and not do. And sometimes it's simple things like not putting frames everywhere and boxes, but making it as clear as possible for the customer to read and understand. And that's really a focus that we have currently, because we believe that it's helping a lot the communication between us and the customer, but also with the developers and making them more efficient, because they will be able to directly code things because they see what's required.
Yeah. And here the focus also on the specification is also to make something quite big, so we can give, I would say, a significant amount of work for the developer, and we try to have one specification, one scene, one escalator row per, I would say, screen or flow. Let's say you want to customize the sales order, then you're going to put every modification you want to make inside this escalator row, and try to have something quite big in order to give, I could say, enough work for a developer to work like for several days, and not having to switch from one task that can take 2 hours to another that take 2 hours, and so the developer will always have to seek for work, and we lose some time in this context switch because he will have to read the task, understand what he is expecting to do, etc. One big specification, so we explain it once, and then he can work for several days, and then the BA can also focus on the next block of specification.
Yes, and not only that, it's also that if you cut the developments into small pieces, later on you have to make sure that all those pieces are fitting well together, while if you put all the pieces in one specification, it's by design that the fit will be there. Something else that's quite important for me in terms of delivery is that we are using Odoo SH or PaaS platform to manage all the developments and the deployments, and so that's really helpful, and it helps us to be really efficient, because it will allow us to do some testing directly, unit test on dev branches, and we will then use staging branches, not too much, but some staging branches to make testing in an integrated way. So on sprints that are delivered all together, we will make sure that everything is working fine, and then we will ask the customer to test on those staging branches. Something interesting also with Odoo SH is that when you create your staging branch, it will be rebuilt based on the production data, and it also means that, for example, all the specific configuration that you want to put in place, you can put them at least in the first phase of a project directly into production, so that you don't lose time having to do some setup every time you want to test something.
So here, the documents that Max just showed on the specification is not part of the methodology book. So here we're going to see how we can also introduce that, because that's something we want to, I would say, test at the moment and see what would be the best recommendation and what would be the best methodology to use. So here, this is already something we started. So it's here still a work in progress, and we're going to see if we can add that in the methodology book, because it's something really important and really at the center of every LMC project, and how to do specification, and how to be, I would say, smart and efficient in those kind of specification.
Indeed. Regarding the delivery, some remarks, or something that's quite important to put in place and to understand at the very beginning of the project is making sure that you have the right structure at the customer side regarding the validation of the estimates for change requests and for new tasks. Because it's important that they realize, and that's normal in the life cycle of a project to have things that are changing or new needs that pop up, but it's important also to make sure that the budget and also the scoping is validated by someone who has the capacity to do so on the customer side. The goal for us is always to have one main point of contact on the customer side, and so if it's the product owner, the SPOC, that's the best. But if they need a validation, it's important that it's done at their side.
Because we had the case in the past where we received a lot of change requests or new requests that the PM or the operational project manager was validating and say, okay, go forwards on that. But at the end, or at some point, the budget was an issue, and then we had to explain why we extend the budget. And so here it's really important to find who is the guy, I would say, fully responsible of the budget, and who is paying the invoice at the end, just to make sure that he is aware that we receive new requests and that the budget will increase. It's not to, I would say, to protect ourselves, it's just to be able to notify people that doing something new will have an impact on the planning and on the budget. And if we have to do it everyone must be informed, and it has to be validated by someone and for some good reason.
Indeed. And then another important point that you just explained is really linked to that planning and budget monitoring. So for me, it's really key to keep the customer's trust on the long run, to make sure that you communicate regularly about the planning and the budget. So it's important to keep an updated version of the planning, making sure that things are still feasible in the time frame that were decided, and if we decide to adapt the planning, to make sure that it's understood by everyone and accepted by everyone, and otherwise we should check together what are the actions to take to adapt the situation and correct the issues or the delays. The same for the budget, so it's really important to be transparent about the budget. There are things that we put in place, like for example regular status meetings. We have status meetings at the level of the project, more focused on the specific delivery and the tasks, but we also have a steerco that we do at least once a month to make sure that all the sponsors of the project are well aware of where we stand in terms of planning and budget, and they can also see what are the different risks that we identified and help us mitigating those risks. Another important point is that even if we are working on the mid-market and corporate segment, the essence of Odoo is also to try to answer most of the needs in standard and making sure that we don't do customizations, developments, just to make things as it was before, or just because we believe it can make the life of someone easier, even if it's a small task that's taking already a few times. So it's really important that if we want to go for a development, we challenge that development, and that's already something that we will do at the ROI stage. But during the implementation, we have to keep in mind that we must stick as much as possible to the standard, and even in this specific frame of MMC project. And it's not easy, but what's important is to explain to the customer the reason why you do that. You don't just do that to deceive them. It's really to make sure that you will be able to deliver on time, that the budget will be kept under control, and that the technical depth of the project will also be kept under control, because all those small developments, each one is adding complexity to the project and will have to be handled with the other developments, but also with the upgrades and later on. So it's really something that we should keep to a minimum.
Yeah, we should discuss about this technical debt that you have to drag for the entire life of the project. So every development has an impact, has a cost, and so it's important to keep that as the lowest level possible, just to avoid having issue in the maintenance phase or the upgrade phase, because here the lower the technical debt is, the bigger the chance that everything will be smooth in that case. So here it's important to keep the project as standard as possible. And so here a question, if we can share this Xmine file. Yes, we can share it. We're gonna share the link, but first we have to clean a bit the different links, because here, as I said, so some of the links point to our internal database, because we use some tools that we're gonna present on our database, and here we're gonna have to clean that. Otherwise, you will just have, I can say, an access denied return, and so we're gonna have just to clean that to make them most, I would say, usable and shareable for the audience.
And the last point, so it's about customer satisfaction. So it's not the main focus. It's not always easy to say and to follow as a rule, but it's really important to understand that there will be some frustrations at the beginning. The thing is that you know that it's for a better, and you have also to take the time to explain that to the customer again and again. And I can tell you that when you tell it the first time, maybe they will be frustrated, but on the long run,
I think we have the chart we use on the methodology book here, where we show the satisfaction. I think it's somewhere in there, where we really show that at the beginning of the project, everyone is super happy of having the project, so the satisfaction is super high. But with the delivery of the project, here it will decrease, because that's where we're gonna face some issues. We're gonna have, so I would say, even some conflicts, and that's normal. That's something we expect from the project, because here we're gonna push for a solution. The client will have another way of thinking how the project should be done, have another view on the way it has been, it has to be delivered. So here, as you can see, the customer satisfaction is decreasing with the time, with a significant drop during the go live, because that's where the pressure start to increase, because we realize that tomorrow we're gonna have to switch from the existing softwares to Odoo. We're gonna have to jump into a new platform. We are not 100% sure that it is gonna work very smoothly. And so here we're gonna have also to make some trade-off between what really matters for the go live, what can be postponed. So we have a lot of discussion, sometimes a lot of disagreement, and so that's where the customer satisfaction decrease. And then of course we expect that after the go live it goes back to a higher level. But here our purpose is really to say that we should not focus on customer satisfaction on the short term, but of course on the long term the customer should be satisfied at some point. Otherwise he's just gonna leave Odoo and switch for another platform. But that's something normal, that the client gets frustrated at some point, because here our focus as consultant, as project manager, is really to deliver the project the fastest possible. And if the client is not really super happy at some point, is not an issue. We're gonna satisfy him later on.
Then another topic that's really key for the success of a project is the change management. So it's important to realize that it's not only an IT project and that you will deliver a wonderful tool and everyone will be happy. The thing is that you are working and dealing with people, and people are key in the success of the project, not only people that are part of the project implementation on the customer side, but also all the people that will be impacted by the implementation. And most of the time on MMC implementations, it's a lot of people. And so it's really important to take that aspect into account. What we ask our customers to do is to appoint an adoption manager. So it's really someone who will be in charge of that people aspect. And so generally what we explain, it's the boat and passenger analogy, is the fact that the boat is really the tool that we will put in place, and the boat will be on port on time, and that's cool. But if people are not there, if the passengers are not more in the boat, the tool means basically nothing. So it's super important to make sure that you take the time to onboard those people, to train them, to make sure that they are reassured about how they will work tomorrow, and about also the specific time of the go live, and making sure that they will have the right level of support just after the go live. And it's really part of the project to manage that change. Most of the job should be done on the customer side. So for me, it's important that we as Odoo help the customer to realize how important it is, and that we give them some tools and some advices. Like, for example, we have an adoption matrix that we use, where you can basically do some follow-up and monitoring, and several customers are either using it, part of it, or using other tools. But for me, what's important is that the people aspect is just taken into account, and that you will be able at one point to make sure that you can have a readiness assessment. And so for basically everyone in the company, you should have an idea about the readiness level. And so when there will be a go-no-go for the production go-live, people should be ready as well, and not only the tool.
And here what's important is that in the past we used to really fully delegate the change management to the client, just saying that you have to do some change management. And we realized that most of the time all this onboarding work or this communication work was left on the side, and even the training part was left on the side or not done at all. And I would say the management just pushed that Odoo will be the solution and that will be it. And so we introduce that concept more and more in our project, and we really see the difference between project where this has been handled from the beginning, or with the project that we don't do like active change management. And this can take, as Max said, many forms. So here we have this file to follow and to monitor this part of the project, this stream of the project. But here, the way you do it at the client side can take different forms. It's like maybe some small workshop where we just communicate on the progress of the project. It's also to make some face-to-face interview if we feel that someone is not really fully onboarded or frustrated with the implementation or not or against Odoo even. We can also find some real alternative. As an example, for one of our clients, we saw that the Lab Odoo, our truck, where we had different workshops available, we decided, because he was available, to send the truck to the client, so the client can play with Odoo to really promote Odoo. And it made like a huge difference, because the end user saw what Odoo looked like. They can start to play with Odoo, like with the physical aspect, like assembling a chair, etc. So it really made a difference between those kind of projects where the people are already informed, are part of the project at some point, with a project where we don't do it, and the end user just know that Odoo will come at some point, but don't know exactly what, and just expect the training to be done. So really important topic, is not something I would say super complex on paper, but it really makes a difference, because here we also deal with the people and to keep them on board and try to make them talk about Odoo internally, so everyone can jump into the project pretty smoothly.
And so those are the activities that will be handled during the life cycle of the implementation itself. And then there will be the go live. So maybe important also to say that the idea for us is to go live as fast as possible. And so it means that during the ROI already, we will we will cut, in fact, the project in different phases. And the idea is to put the first phase live as soon as possible. And one of the reasons for that is that by using Odoo in their day-to-day, people will realize how powerful it is and how things can be managed differently. Because before actually using it, it's very difficult for them to project themselves in new solutions. And by using it, you will see a switch in the mentality of the people you are working with, is that they will better understand the solutions that you will propose. They will more easily accept the workarounds, because they will know that indeed in a few clicks, by using an import, by doing a mass update, they can handle what they want to do, and there is no need for the development of a magic button that will do the job for them. So go lives. First point is to make sure that you are as prepared as possible. So what we do is building a go live checklist to make sure that we have the list of all configurations that still have to do. As I said, most configuration, we try to do them in production when it's possible, but if it's, for example, a second phase, or if the configuration is specific to a development that's not yet in production, you will have to handle it during the go-live itself. The idea is really to assign the different to-dos, so you will have a list of items, you will know who has to do what action at what time. And it's important to put names there, so it's not just Odoo or just the customer, it's really people that you should put in those items, so that it's super clear on the go-live date who is responsible for what. It's important also in the different actions to put some communication points. So for example, it's important to make sure that you will tell everyone, okay guys, as from now, the old system is not available anymore, or it's only read-only, and now you have to switch to Odoo, or not yet, so wait until the go to start working in Odoo. We have also to provide time estimates for all those tasks, because the idea is to make sure that the go-live will be able to handle it in the time frame that was decided with the customer. And sometimes you have time critical aspects to take into account. So it's important to know how much time the go live will take, and that's also linked to the next step, the rehearsal and dry runs. It's really based on that checklist where you will have also dependencies between the different tasks, that you are able to run that checklist and that all the steps are super clear, that the time that you estimated is the actual time, and that you are ready to deploy the solution when it will be the day. Anything to add on the go live?
No, just here the important topic of the go live is to be flexible and really reactive, because here you will face some issue. You will forget, I would say, some of the aspect, and it's important to be there during the go live and the days just after the switch to Odoo, just to be able to refocus and fix the different issue you may face, just to let the company operate. So here this is something really important, because it's quite hard period, because here you really have to fix the issue on the spot immediately to not block the company and to make it work and operate as smooth as possible. It's not an issue to not be fully ready, as Max explained, but really to be there, to be available, so free your agenda and be there for the client in case if there is an issue, just be there to fix it as fast as possible.
Yeah, in fact that's part of all the go live checklist, is also making sure that people know what's the process to follow once the go live has happened and when they have some issues. And the idea is to make sure that it's using a kind of funnel, so that we won't receive hundreds or thousands of requests and that are all urgent, and then it's not manageable on our side. So the idea is really have to have a structure where you have key users that will be the first filter on the customer side. Then you will have the project team that will handle the points that could not be handled by the key users. And finally, things will come to us. And we will also explain to the customer what we need to be able to be efficient. So if they just say it doesn't work, that's not helping us. We don't know what they did, how they reached the bug, and how we can reproduce it. So if we don't have that information, it's not easy for us to understand what's happening. It's not easy for us to fix it, and it's not easy for us to test and validate that the fix is the right one. So all those things are part of the go live preparation to make sure that on the day we will have everything in place, all the structure in place to manage the small issues that will happen, because you will always have small issues and questions after a go live. That's just normal.
And one way also to do it and to be really reactive and flexible is sometimes also to go on the customer location, just to be there with the project team, with the key users, so we can also sometimes see and work with them to reproduce the issue or to understand what is the root cause of an issue. So if it's possible, just go there at least for the one or 2 or 3 days after the go live, and be there, of course, when you made the switch, just to be as fast as possible and as reactive as possible. We should not wait too much between the notification of an issue and the deployment of the solution at some point. So be there and try to solve it as fast as possible. So here I see a question about customer success story for Odoo implementation in the mid-market for manufacturing company. So here internally we have quite a few projects where we use the manufacturing application of Odoo. So here, I'm not sure if I can share the name, but here it's a company active in the pharmaceutical industry that is active around the world. And here we addressed this topic and this company in the last year, and we already deployed, I think, 3 companies of this group, at least in 3 different countries. And we also worked on the certification to be GMP compliant. So it was a huge process and a huge investment for the client to be able to ensure that all the processes were done. And basically, we followed our methodology where we try to stick to the standard, but to find the best workaround. We work with the client, with different adoption committee, etc. So here we did not have a lot of differences. Of course, the manufacturing process was quite complex and critical because we had to make some traceability work to make sure that we can trace everything, that everything is auditable, etc. But basically, it's still a success because here we start with one company in the US where we also collaborate with our office in Buffalo, but they also wanted to onboard a company here in Europe, in Budapest, and so we directly implemented the solution. And they also have another company. I forgot where it is located, but it's in another country, and they want to continue to invest sometimes. So we try to build some sub-team to handle those kind of projects on the client side. On our side, we try to onboard 1 or 2 extra resource depending on the client location because we want to be efficient. So here in the company in the US, we work with someone with a BA in Buffalo to avoid the time difference, to be able to be on site when it was needed. And here for the client in Europe, we fully handle the project internally. And we also went on site to discuss with the client at some point. And that's the plan to continue on this.
Maybe you can cite Odoo blogs with success stories written.
Yeah, and so we have also the Odoo blogs where we also share some customer stories. We also have the reference book that we have. And on the blogs, you can find them with the customer success story written on them. So here, everything that we can share, we share it. And it's in our blog, on our Odoo reference book that you can also find on the internet. If you just type Odoo reference book, I think you will find the PDF. And in there you will find all the references we have, everything we have done, the scope deployed, a bit of context of the company, the size of the company, the location, etc. So you'll find all the information. But basically, on the MMC team, we have projects in every industry, in every sector, and almost of every time from the really small company with few, I would say a few users, like 10, 20 or 50 users, until the really big company with more than 4,000 users.
And I realized that there was an aspect that I did not cover yet. It's about governance itself. So during the project implementation, to make sure that things are working as efficiently as possible and that the communication with the customer is good. We are using several tools. So internally, we have a project dashboard that
maybe before digging into the detail, because I see that there are questions about the implementation strategy. Either if we go with a Odoo app by app, so phased or Big Bang approach, so what would you do?
In fact, I would say it depends. Most of the time, what we try to do is to reduce the risk. And as I said, we want to go live as fast as possible. So the idea is to go live with a smaller scope, but sometimes for valid business reasons, it's not possible and you have to go for a big bang. But most of the time, we try to cut the project in several pieces to make sure that we can bring added value as soon as possible and confront the user to do as fast as possible as well.
Yeah, that's really what try to avoid is the big bang, because it's quite a risky approach. But when we have no choice, of course, we go for that. But we always try to minimize risk for the client, and we try to find the best approach. Either we go for the entire application in one shot, but we try to say, okay, maybe one company out of the maybe 5 company we have in the group, or we go for one app for the entire company, or the entire group, sorry. So we try to really to find the best solution, the solution that will bring the most value for the client and that will ensure a fast go live and a proper, I would say, onboarding to be able to move users to Odoo and to secure the project, because we know that once the project is live and used by the end user, the more secure it will be and the less the chance that the project will churn or stop at some point. So it's really to find the best strategy and to discuss that with the client, to come with your recommendation, with your solution, to fully let the customer decide, because again, we are the Odoo expert. We know what we can do in an implementation, what would be the best strategy in terms of Odoo constraint or limitation. So here, what we have to remember, so it's quite flexible, but we try to avoid having a full Big Bang approach unless it's required for valid business reason, as Max explained.
And so if we jump back on the governance, so we are using several tools like the project dashboard, where it's basically an Odoo spreadsheet with information about the projects that can be fine-tuned depending on the needs of the project manager, where you will be able to do a follow-up. It is just a template. But the idea is really to use that tool to be able to detect when things are maybe deviating, and be able to report about it and take actions. And so, for example, one thing that we do using that dashboard is that we don't wait until tasks are fully delivered to realize that it took too much time. What we will do is that because we are using Odoo and different stages in the project, we can give a ponderation, percentage of achievement for each of those stages. And so we can, for example, detect that a task that is at the analysis stage is already problematic because we spent too much time on it. And so we have already to take actions, understand what's going on, and check with the customer why the discussions are taking longer than what was expected, basically at the ROI level.
What's important in our dashboard, because it can seem quite easy to use. So here, as you can see on the screen, we don't have a lot of KPIs that we follow, because we really want to have follow, as Max explained, is to have some numbers where we can take some action based on that. To really see, okay, if the estimated budget move, do we have to do something about that? So here we really want to have something actionable and see and monitor only what's really important for the project to avoid having issue later in the project. Because even if the client say, okay, budget is not an issue, at some point it will become an issue, or at least a topic that we'll have to discuss. So here, this the tool we use. Of course, we encourage you to build your own tool and make the best tool that to work with. But basically what we do is to work with Odoo spreadsheets directly, so we don't have to copy-paste value from one place to another. Everything is integrated, and we can make the best, take the best decision, or inform the client if something is shifting in one way or the other.
And so, because we use Odoo spreadsheet, it's real-time updated, so it means that the project director can have a look quite regularly and take actions if required, and provide also additional information about the reasons why there would be exceptions or deviations. Then we have also something very important. It's the steering committees that we have with the customer, and so on the customer side, the idea is to prepare that together with the product owner, so our project manager at the customer side, and to be aligned on the messages we will discuss with the management, so the sponsors of the project will have to be there. And so there should be no surprise for the product owner on the customer side. We should be aligned about the messages that we want to pass. It's also a unique opportunity to involve the sponsors in the risk mitigations and solutions discussions. And so it's really important to prepare well those committees. It's important also to have at least a touch point about the change management topic, and sometimes we have also specific adoption management committees, but still I believe it's important for the sponsors to know where we stand in terms of change management, what were the things that were put in place, what are the issues that were already detected, and the things that must be worked on. The idea of the steerco is, of course, to reassure the customer. It doesn't mean that you have to minimize the issues or the risk. On the opposite, for me, the idea is to be as transparent as possible and to make sure that if there are points that should be discussed and tackled, and as we said, customer satisfaction at that stage is not the priority. It's really making sure that the project will work and that the project will be delivered on time and on budget. And so if there are difficult messages to be discussed at that stage, it's important to take them and to discuss them as soon as possible and not wait too late when it's too late to take actions and to discuss about those points. So that's why we say that it should be done at least every month, and sometimes it can be every 3 weeks or even every 2 weeks, depending on the situation.
Yeah, and something I can add on this recurrence to have something on a monthly basis is you should not have, I can say, maybe all the session, like a physical session, all the time, because at some point the client might say, okay, I don't need Steerco anymore. But we should continue to inform the client on how the project is moving in terms of planning, in terms of budget, in terms of scopes, in terms of people. So either you plan meetings, like the classic way, or if the client says, okay, I don't want any Steerco, you should continue to inform him by simply building your dashboard, building your support, like a presentation with slide, and just send it over email, so at least the client will know where the project is and cannot come back to you with the reason, okay, I did not know that the project were delayed, that the budget will, has increased, or blah, 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 blah. So here, really make sure that you communicate on those aspects on a monthly basis.
Yeah, and I would say the fact of not having the physical meeting, we should avoid it if it's possible, because it's not only about giving information about the status of the project, it's also discussing about those risks, the issues that we have and how we can mitigate those. And sometimes we need the level of the sponsors to have mitigation actions and levels that we don't have at the project level. So it's really important to have those touch points, I would say, with the higher management.
So here I see a question about the average implementation time for a mid-sized company. If they fully embrace the Odoo methodology and the Odoo apps. So here it really depends, but basically what we can see or what we can say is that we have the first go live between 6 months after the start project and a year, something like this, depending on the size of the project, the number of users, the number of sites we have to implement. But basically, that's a bit the time frame. It's between 6 months and a year. And of course, it can takes longer because we can have, of course, several go-live events here. The longest project we had that we have now finished, the full implementation took 10 years. And in those 10 years, we had 2 upgrades, and we implemented for all those years because here the scope was continuously expanding, adding new requests. So here you can see that we can have projects that can go very fast in terms of in terms of go live, because here this project we went live in 6 months. But then we can continue to improve and bring some additional features or additional values to the client for a very long period. But most of the time, I think in 2 years, the projects are fully done and fully transferred to the support team. Yeah. Here, one word about the template of the ROI analysis. In the methodology book is still the ROI a previous version. Of course, we can also share the new template as well, because here at Odoo we try to review the way we work to be the most efficient and to bring the most value to clients. So sometimes all the documents are not up to date. So we're going to try to share that with you again.
And when we do so, the idea is really to make things more simple. And so it's a difficult exercise, but really important for us to make sure that our tooling are also reviewed, refactored, and can be more efficient to use on the new projects that we are working on based on the experience that we had. And for example, some things that we change is making things less dark magic, like using automated ratios and things like that. Instead of that, we use a lot more people's insights, so the project manager and the BAs that will provide information in the ROI tool. And that's based on that information that we can explain to the customer and that we can defend, that we will base our estimates.
Yeah, you're right, because here in the past we tried to automate a lot of things or a lot of computation in different estimation or the way we do also the ROI analysis, and we tried to remove that, to simplify that, and to push people to think, is this number really valid? Why did I put this amount of days? So to be able to really think and put some justification, as Max said, behind those numbers, and to be able to explain the number, to be able to defend or to present the entire budget to the client by really knowing what's behind the number. So in the past we had all those formulas. It was hard for the client to understand and hard for us sometimes to explain why we had these estimates. So by removing all of this and by reviewing our way and our tooling, it will help us to take some step back and see what would be the best to provide the best answer and to give with the most accurate budget and planning and scoping as well possible.
And so for the steer code, just to add 2 important points. Also, internally, we keep a summary of the information in the project update, so it makes it easier for the management, for example, to have a look at the project and see, okay, where do we stand, what were the last important points that were discussed, and we don't have to take time of people and ask everyone in the team, okay, but what's happening on this project? We have access to that information quite easily. Another point is also to make sure that when you have the steerco, most of the time it's only the project director on the Odoo side and the CAM, and the full team, the implementation team is not at that meeting, but it's important to keep the team updated and make sure that all the important decisions and messages are shared together with the team and that they know why we are taking this or this decision. So that they can follow us and fully be on board of the implementation plan.
Yeah, because we think that communication around the project is really important, and so that's why we think that everyone should be informed on the status of the project. So that's why here we ask the project director to summarize the steerco on the project updates. So the feature we have in Odoo, where we can just make a status on the project. So every key decision is there. So everyone that wants to have a look on the project or is looking for information can find it quite easily, and also to share the message with the team that is not always invited to those meetings. So everyone knows what's the current mood on the project, on the client side, but also on the Odoo side. So here really the transparency and the communication is really key. And I would say it's even part of sometime on change management and the motivation on the team and on the way we can deliver the project smoothly.
There is a question about the percentage that use only Odoo apps to run their business, looking at the mid-sized companies.
Here it's true that in the vast majority of our project, we still have to integrate with some application. But here, again, it will depend on the project, because sometimes we have what we call the temporary integration. Because here, when we face the project, sometimes so they already have the entire IT landscape to fully operate, and we're going to replace some block of this landscape, and so we still have to connect the data in a way, or to share the data with the other platform. So here, I would say 90% of the project we have, we still have to integrate with external platform. But sometimes just for a short period, just to make the bridge or the link between two phases, where we're going to remove some application. Most of the in project, the integration that we have to do is sometimes on the accounting level, because here in some project we tend to push the finance part at the end, because we know that the accountant are quite adverse or change reluctant, because it's important to find the right number, etc. So it depends really on the case, but basically most of the time we still have to integrate with at least one external platform, because we also depend on their past projects. Sometimes they just change to a new CRM software, or they just redid their full e-commerce. So they don't want to reinvest some money or to put some budget on the table to replace this software they just finished. So we have to play with those constraints and still have to integrate. Even if we have the solution in Odoo in standard, we have to play with those constraints and maybe push it for later, maybe in 1 or 2 years, to continue to push and to knock at the door and say, okay, maybe we can switch this e-commerce to Odoo, or switch the CRM to Odoo, because we have the feature internally.
And what we observe is that with time, the companies or customers, they just realize that having part of the solution in Odoo, there is a big opportunity to bring other parts of the business or of the activities inside Odoo as well. And so it's quite frequent to add some apps during the implementation, things that were not specifically foreseen at the level of the ROI, because it was not things that were mandatory at that stage. But with the time, we realized that it can bring a lot of value, and so we incorporate those applications during the implementation or during a new phase that we put at the end of the implementation. Sometimes it also happens that it's the case after an upgrade, because after an upgrade there are maybe new functionalities on existing apps or new apps, things that customers are interested in, and they will also take that upgrade opportunity to increase the scope of Odoo applications for their business. If we go back to the governance, another touch point that we put in place is the project committee. It's optional, but for the bigger ones, I would say it's mandatory, and the idea is to have it either every week or every 2 weeks, and the idea is to check together with the product owner what's the status of the backlog, what are the priorities that we have right now, because when you will have several sprints already delivered, sometimes you will have bugs that are detected and that should be handled, and so you have also to manage the priority between those bugs to fix and the new features to develop, making sure that you don't take too much time on the fine-tuning, because sometimes bugs are not really bugs, it's sometimes just so small changes that could be done at a later stage. In that case, what I usually do is that I plan a sprint later on for all those tasks so that we put them on the side. We focus on the implementation that was decided during the ROI, and all those small things we can take the time to rethink about them and decide if we implement them or not. The idea of the project committee is also to adapt the way we collaborate, so making sure that we work in an efficient way with the customer, that the validations are coming on time, that the tests are done correctly, and so that we are well aligned on what we expect from them and what they expect from us. And so, as I said, the idea is to have it weekly or every 2 weeks. And again, we can also put a summary in the project update to give some visibility to everyone involved in the project, or even people that are not directly involved in the project. And finally, we have also weekly internal meetings. The idea is to be super efficient during those meetings, so it should be quite short. We try to stick to a quarter. And the idea is to do a quick briefing and check what are the points that should be tackled basically this week. So what are the issues, what are the problems that are blocking us, and what are the deadlines that must be reached at the end of the week, so that it's clear for everyone and we are all working in the same direction.
And then again here on this governance part, it can reflect the image that we spend our time in meetings, but that's not the point here. What we try to do is to be efficient. So here, if there is no topic to be discussed, or if there's nothing to be discussed, or if the discussion is over, just stop the meeting at this point and really think, is it something we should keep, or should we continue to work on our task? Let's say, if I take the example of the weekly internal meetings, of course you can align and discuss with everyone on the team at some point, but just don't discuss specific topic with a large audience. Just assign different to-dos, define the different to-dos with different people, and if there is something to discuss, just go on the side and work with that person directly. Don't spend too much time in the meetings, because it will not make the project move. Just be, I would say, efficient and focus on the delivery of the different aspect of the project.
And then there is a last part regarding the monitoring and the peer review. So the idea is to make sure that we give visibility to the customer about the project. So for example, some dashboards can be shared with the customer so that they can have a real live view on it. What we do as well is that as we are using Odoo project to manage the tasks, they basically have the full Gantt view of the project, so they can see where stands every task, and they can ask us questions directly on the task, and we can check together with the project manager if the sprint is going well, and they don't have to ask us for information. They have access directly to the information by themselves, and it's important that we give them that level of visibility. It's also important on our side to make sure that we can continue to onboard more junior profiles with some follow-up and coaching on different projects. So It can be for all the different roles, from project director to BA and solution architect. We put in place the structure that allows us to make people grow in their role. And we use the project updates to make sure that all the important aspects of the project during the life cycle of it are documented, and that we can also see the evolution of what's happening on a project, because it's good to have a plan, but most of the time the plan will have to be adapted to the reality, and it's important to take that into account and to document the reasons.
And here, this monitoring and slash peer review is something we believe is really important, because here, when you are inside the project, you will sometimes not notice that the project is shifting in the not best, I would say, direction. So that's why here we believe that it's important to ask for an external view from someone. So here, as I would say a manager at Odoo, sometimes I just take random project and just try to see a bit how it goes. I'm looking at the project tool to see a bit how the tasks are organized, to check if there is a lot of change requests, new requests, if the tasks are correctly, I would say, specified, if the needs are clear, etc. But also to check at how the planning looks like. Do we have to update the planning all the time? Does the budget change on a quite frequently? And just to take some step back and take an external view can also help the team to spot some place where we can bring some improvement. And being in the project will limit you a bit to make that step, because here you will be a bit, I would say, biased in the way you work, and you will slowly shift to, I would say, a more specific project. You will challenge a bit less the developments, because you will put yourself too much in the shoe of the customer, and being on his side, and to provide like a really tailored solution where the standard can answer if you really stick to the business needs. So here the peer review is something really important, and we should make it visible also for the client to prove that we also look at the quality of the delivery of the project from time to time, and we try to put the project back on track. It does not mean that we have to do it only when the project is, I would say, in bad condition. But if we can take a look at some point, and not only take a look at just, I would say, on a helicopter view, is sometimes to dig into some detail and to put some actions after those reviews. It's really important to put that on the customer radar, that something is done on this side to ensure the proper and the best delivery of the project.
And as you said, that monitoring, it's not only internal, so you can also jump to meetings with customer and ensure that you are there to see a bit and feel the project and how the dynamic of the project is going.
Yeah, so here I see the question about an Odoo app should replace another tool the client is using, and what do we do if we notice that the client is still using the other tool? So that's something we faced like a couple of months ago, where we realized that the end user shift without telling to anyone to the other software. And we just detect that simply by luck when the PM on the client side just went on the floor, the manufacturing floor, and just realized that they left Odoo and they opened back their Excel file. And the way we did is to work with those users to understand why they made the switch, and then we realized that they spot an issue on Odoo. They did not report it to us, and it was kind of blocking for them, and we just had to work with them to convince them that if there is an issue, and to guide them to report the issue they face, because if there is something to fix, they have to notify their project team, so on the customer side, and then the project team will either find a solution immediately by adjusting some configuration or provide them some training or something like this, or if there is really a bug, then they can report that to us, and then we can fix that. So here the way we do that is really to work with those people to understand why they don't want to use Odoo, and continue to work with the DXC system to understand those reasons and to be able to provide some solution or some insight on why they should, I would say, stop using this platform, because Odoo will fill all the needs they have. So here it's really a matter of people here to understand why Odoo is not answering all their needs, but basically we don't face that quite often, I would say. At least I'm not aware of many cases, but this one was quite surprising, because here we put the project live and we only realized that 2 weeks after, because everything was correctly generated in Odoo, but nothing was validated, and we don't, I would say, look at the activity on the database on a really specific detail. But here it was really by luck that the PM went on the floor and realized that they were all working on Excel and not on Odoo anymore.
What I had already once is that, in fact, what they did to make sure that it would not happen, and it was not something that was handled on Excel, but it was really on a specific application, that the application was moved into read-only mode after the transition to Odoo, just to make sure that technically it was not possible. But of course, you have to make sure that those things are well communicated, and it's part for me of the change management to do your best to avoid those kind of situations. But indeed, it can happen, and when it happens, you have to take the appropriate actions. What we do as well, also on some projects where we see that there is a risk that it happens, is that we do proactive monitoring in the Odoo database to see, okay, are they actually using it, and just checking if they are using it well as well, so that if there are some deviations or things that are not done correctly, we can still fix and make sure that the trainings or whatever that should be, or the documentation should be updated. Maybe those things can be done fast, and we don't wait months before realizing that they are not using Odoo correctly or not using it at all.
And so here, what we also see here explained, because here we covered, I would say, mostly the pre-sales part and the implementation part so far, is the way we do it internally. I would say indirect with the client, but we also collaborate with Odoo partners to make some specific implementation. Because here, sometimes we have partners that come with a deal that can be sometimes too big, too complex, or whatever reason. Sometimes the client is really expecting the editor to be involved. So we also work with our partner network to collaborate on some deals. So it's either a partner that comes to us to work on a specific project or deal, but it's also the other way around, because sometimes the client is looking for a specific know-how or a specific topic or a specific industry, and we know that one of our partner worked on this aspect. We had the request, for example, in one of our projects to have something work Odoo that can work partially in offline mode. So here we know that one partner has developed an app that can work with Odoo without internet connection. So we involve that partner in the project to really handle this part of the scope, because we cannot fully answer the need. We also have the case when the client is looking for really an on-site present or regular on-site present that is not located, for example, in Belgium. Let's say we have a client in the Netherlands or in Germany, then we can also working with a partner to ensure this local presence or this local knowledge, because we are not expert in every, for example, accounting localization. We are not expert in the, I would say, Netherlands localization or the one in Germany. So we can also try to find the best knowledge and the best combination of party in the project management. And that's also where the topic that Max addressed, the RACI matrix, is really important, because the more people involved, the more complex the project will be. So it's important to tackle those aspects at the beginning to avoid bad surprises at the end. So another question, so here, is the Odoo company using only the Odoo apps project and timesheet to implement Odoo at the client, or are Excel sheets also used to manage the implementation? And if you use Excel, what do you use it for?
So we do our best to only use Odoo, but there are some exceptions, and with time we try to put all those exceptions back into Odoo. For example, exceptions that we had, it was about, for example, checklist like the checklist, the go live checklist. It was handled in Excel because for various reasons the customer had that spreadsheet and handled on their side, and we got access to it. And so it's more for practical reasons that I would say we would still use Excel. But for the project management itself, we really do the maximum to put everything in Odoo. And then there are support that are not Odoo itself, like the slides that we use for the different presentations. And for example, right now, as you saw, the ROI analysis tool is still in Excel as well. But the reason is that we want everyone to be able to use it. So I would say it's case by case. When it can be internalized, we will do it. And when there are good reasons to keep a tool separate, we will keep it like that.
Yeah, we will try to think on what would be the most efficient solution for one particular case. So here we try also to push as much as possible into Odoo, and also to force us to be in Odoo, to spot what Odoo installer is lacking in terms of features or in terms of flexibility or capacity to remake the project also the product evolve. So here, for example, we had some limitation about the project collaboration with the external with the clients. So here we submit the feedback to the product owner, and we try to find the best solution to be to get the most of Odoo and bring all and everything inside Odoo, so the client can have like the full picture of his project, but also to his invoices and this subscription. So everything in one place, to not having to open too many screens, too many tools to get the view on what is working or what is dealing with Odoo. So here it's really, I would say 80% of our work is inside Odoo, and for the rest it's just for, I would say, practical reason, like the slides, like the ROI file, because some of the time we do not import every item as a task. We try to make something really workable. And even the ROI, at some point we might think, and my design might switch back to Odoo to really to skip one step, which is the task creation. If we already created during the ROI part, we can make the best use of our time.
So I see we have a few minutes left, so maybe let's try to cover the support and maintenance and then the upgrade part. For support and maintenance, what's important to know is that it's an all or nothing way. So basically, if we do the maintenance, we will do the maintenance of all the code. It also means that if we would have to integrate code that was not developed by Odoo, code review will be required to make sure that the level of quality is there and that we agree to maintain that code. The maintenance is only covering the technical aspect, so it's really technical bugs that will be covered by those maintenance costs. And for the MMC project, we work with dedicated agents that are trained specifically about the project, and they will be the first line, knowing that on the long term, the idea is that the tickets, even for those big projects, should be handled by the full support team and not handled only by dedicated agents. And there are also, of course, some aspects that we have to work on to make it possible, like documentation and things like that.
And for the maintenance, so here do not forget that there is this maintenance fee of the €16 per 100 line of code, and we cover that if the maintenance is activated, of course. And when we say we maintain everything or we do not maintain anything, it's just to avoid having, for the client, multiple parts to contact depending on where the bug is located. So here the idea is again to be efficient, because at some point, see if everyone saying that is the other party that should fix the bugs, then the client will be the one punished, because he will still face the issue, waiting that the two other company find some agreement on who gonna fix the issue. And so yeah, it's only the technical part that is covered. So if there is a bug, if there is a change request or a new request, of course it will not be covered by the maintenance. It will have to be tackled by the project team directly. So, and again, follow the implementation step, like some analysis, some estimation, then the development configuration, and some follow-up.
And maybe just to add something about the maintenance is that if it's during the project life cycle, so you went live for phase 1 and you have some maintenance to do on phase 1, it will be handled by the project team to be more efficient, and it's only when the full project will be delivered that there will be a dedicated team taking those tickets into account.
And so this is our, I would say, internal organization that also the partner can benefit from, because here, if they sell also the maintenance, they can benefit from the maintenance of our organization. But of course, I'll also encourage you to build some maintenance capacity if you're a partner, just to be able to be the first line or the front line of your project and the client, because you will be more informed or aware on what the project is about, and also all the technical details you have implemented. So here you have both way of handling the maintenance, but it's really important to be able to also notify the client that this part will be more complex if they bring much and a lot of developments during the project. If they keep it as standard as possible and with the technical depth as low as possible, then the maintenance will be more easy, and the project will be easier to maintain.
I don't know if there is something else to say about maintenance. What happens also sometimes for the support is that during the implementation, if there are bugs that are detected on the really standard code, we will ask the customer to make standard tickets to our support team to train them already to interact with the support team and to know what's the process that they will have to follow once the implementation team will not be there anymore. And if required, we do some follow-up of those tickets. But I think it's a good way to already let them understand how the process works.
I see that there is a question about reporting apps used by Odoo. Is there any kind of challenge faced by Odoo, specifically related to reporting and data analytics? Any integration of AI or Copilot kind of thing in Odoo? So basically, no, we don't have such a feature so far in Odoo. What we use is the dashboard developed in Odoo. And also, we also rely on the Odoo spreadsheet capacity, because here we can really reproduce a lot of Excel report that the client are usually doing, and we put that into Odoo, so we can benefit from the integration between the spreadsheet and the data in the database. So there is nothing to update or to copy paste or to export or whatever. So everything is handled inside Odoo. So that's why here we try to push the user and the customer to use those kind of tools instead of integrating with maybe some external reporting system. Of course, in the MMC project, sometimes they also have already existing platforms such as BI platform, because they try to collect data from different applications. So sometimes we have to make the data available for them to be able to extract the data and make the reporting they want. But basically, if we want to build something from Odoo, we try to use the standard feature, the Odoo spreadsheet, but also the pivot view, the dashboard, the graph view, the list view with all the grouping. So we try to really use all the features that Odoo is bringing to be able to analyze and to see what's behind the numbers.
And maybe a last topic that we can still cover today, it's once the implementation is done, the project is in support, but you will also have the upgrade topic that will pop up at one point. And so what we try to do is to avoid big version gaps between the two versions, the current one and the one we want to upgrade to. So the idea is to keep maximum 3 versions, because first of all, it's only the 3 versions that are officially supported, but not only that, it's that the bigger the gap, the bigger the changes the customer will have to deal with. And that can be also a challenge in terms of change management, not only a technical challenge. What's covered by the maintenance fees, it's the technical upgrade of the code, and by the licenses, the technical upgrade of the standard code. And when we say technical upgrade, so it's really what it's doing today, it's just transferred into the new version of Odoo, but we don't take into account any refactoring or improvement by default. But generally, the upgrade is the right time to think about some refactoring that could be done at the code level, or also refactoring more functionally speaking. So for example, removing specific developments that was done and replacing it by a standard feature, and so it will decrease the technical depth and improve the integration, because most of the time when things are put in place by the R&D, they are fully integrated. It's not always the case when we do it ourselves for specific aspects. Then there is also a point that has to be discussed with the customer. It's the freeze of the code or not. So normally to upgrade the code should be completely frozen. What we usually do is that we accept still, of course, bug fixes, and we try to keep all the other developments completely on hold. There can be exceptions, but it's really not recommended, because it means that the upgrade will take more time if we continue to develop in parallel. And you have, of course, to take into account the constraint at the level of the customer, the budget impact, because if you take all the refactoring aspects, and on their side, they will have also to do some testing, some analysis, and so on. So there is also an impact on their resources, and the planning impact as well. So they should agree on the time frame where we want change the solution, and they have also to agree on the time at which the upgrade will take place, because the database will be unavailable not a long time, but will be unavailable during the upgrade.
Yeah, and so to conclude the session, so I see that there is one last question about those Excel, the Odoo spreadsheet, the Excel file we have in Odoo, and if the data are updated in real time. So the answer is yes, it's almost in real time, because here, of course, it's not at the second level, but it's reflected and updated on a frequent basis. So there's no need to update it manually, so you can get the real-time analysis of your data. So here I see that the time is over. So I want to thank all of you for all the questions and for attending the session. So here, see you next week for another session. Not with us, but with another Odooer, and maybe next time for another session. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.